Conway's flow on the last 4 bars of this, I'm telling you, subtle, diverse styles. Hey, what's up, y'all? Welcome to the Conway the Machine review show. Feel like that's all I do anymore is review Griselda. Of course, the quality and the quantity is there from the crew, so I don't mind reviewing these every other week or so. So this week, I'm reviewing Conway the Machine, La Maquina, his new album, and I am sipping on a Boont Amber Ale. That's a 5.8% amber coming in from Boonville, California. And maybe I should have got a Buffalo beer for this. Can't say I've had a good Buffalo beer. Somebody recommend a good Buffalo beer for me next time I review Griselda. But in the meantime, I'm gonna sip on this and review this Conway album. Conway may now qualify as the hardest working rapper from the hardest working rap crew ever, Griselda. Just since the pandemic hit the US, he's dropped 5 projects. That's 5 projects in a year, including LULU, One Mourns the Wicked, my 4th best album of last year, From King to a God, and just earlier this year we got If It Bleeds, It Can Be Killed, and now this, La Maquina, which means the machine in Spanish. He is definitely a machine with this kind of output. This one was actually released on his own spin-off label called Drumwork, and he does use this project to really showcase a couple of his signees, in particular Jae Skeese, who's featured on 3 tracks. Bruiser Body, the album kicks off with some trademark Griselda ad-libs as well as these dark bells. You think that might sound weird, some bells being dark in this production style, but when you hear these, you know they're Griselda bells on top of that Griselda bass, and the beat is courtesy of frequent collaborator J.R. Swift's. And does anyone start albums with lines like Conway? He says, "I'm back in that zone, back in the trenches, I'm back at home." That's back-to-back MVP caliber seasons like Pat Mahomes. He continues the lyrical metaphors, comparing himself to Crazy and Busy Bone, as well as Kenny G, of all people. And he seems very comfortable in his laid-back, multi-rhyme patterned flow that he usually displays on this, although he does attempt a little bit something closer to the Bone style later on in the album. On this opening track, he gets it out of the way. He also deads all that conversation about beef within Griselda. He says, "I started Drumwork and people think it's beef with my brother. Maybe even Endeavor, we supposed to eat with each other." Talk to her. 6:30 tip-off. We come in with a triumphant horn-driven beat courtesy of Bangladesh, and I said on my review of the Plugs I Met 2 that I was getting tired of the Griselda basketball/shooter metaphors, but Conway does take it to the next level here. He's comparing in every line something to a basketball player or term, and it's not just about shooters, so I think he's doing this really eloquently, and I'm back into this kind of wordplay. He also says on this, "They say West is the brains behind it and Benny is the star, but let's not act like Machine ain't the silliest with the bars." And I feel like that becomes more and more true with every project. Blood Roses, very smart businessman Conway proves himself to be by putting this out as a single, putting a fire beat behind it, and letting his signee jump on it. That's just smart business. And I'll say these 2 things about drug bars. It always seems to turn out that those rappers that have had pre-careers in the drug game, not to glorify that at all, but it does seem like they become the most successful business people. Conway might have the wherewithal to start this label and display great marketing like what he's doing here and putting his signee out on this lead single and putting his weight as a star behind it. That is great business sense, and he had to learn that from the streets and have somewhat of a natural knack for it. Thank Jay-Z, the billionaire, former president of Def Jam, president of multiple companies, CEO. He came from the same kind of background and used to rap about that all the time. Secondly, about drug bars, we are seeing Conway's growth right before our eyes because we're now 3 tracks in and we've had little to no drug references on this album. And while Jae Skeese does his thing on the chorus here, it continues to be Conway who shines with his 2-liners, the setup and the knockdown, like the hilarious chocolate for breakfast line. Check that one. Clarity. I'm still a sucker for chipmunk samples. No matter how much they've been used for how many years, they'll never be played out to me. And Conway uses this one to continue the punchlines. He says, seen that bitch that did me dirty, gave me that broken heart. She was on the back of the bus watching this Rolls I parked. Only the way he says Rolls I parked sounds like Rosa Parks, little double entendre for you. KD, we got the first and only appearance from Murda Beats on this project, and he comes in with a great beat for Conway to be on his trap tip. And let me say this about Conway, he is displaying diverse styles really subtly. If somebody asked you about rappers with diverse styles, you probably wouldn't mention Conway, and that's just because he's so subtle with it. And it's because 95% of what he does, he sticks with his trademark flow that you would instantly recognize with the old double rhymes at the end of each line. But the other 5%, he's really branching out and getting out of his zone in ways that most modern MCs will not experiment with. And when he does step out of his zone, it's always fire. He always does the style to the best extent. 200 Pies, produced by, you already know, possibly the only entity in hip hop that works harder than Conway the Machine. It's the Alchemist. And he's hitting us with a beat here that's a very familiar style that he's adopted recently. And that's the understated production style. And how is 2 Chainz getting to be so consistent with features, always sounding better on features than he does on his own tracks? He's slowly starting to earn the Rick Ross title. Sister Abigail, no disrespect to Alchemist, but this is the sickest beat on the project, and this is really the best verse that we're going to get from Jae Skeese to show what he can do, gliding over this stellar beat, or as he puts it, I'm blessed, I come anointed, every track I float, these rappers barely buoyant. And Love the Genius, her name is spelled really crazy, by the way, but her name is Love the Genius. She's also signed to Drumwork. Apparently she already has an EP out. I'm going to have to check for that because this verse is crazy. And I'm going to give it a few more listens, but this might be a competitor for the feature of the year. And she's doing things here that I never heard Armani Caesar do. Then again, check Conway's flow on the last 4 bars of this. I'm telling you, subtle, diverse styles. Grace, one of the few missteps on production on this album. The production actually sounds a bit dated on this track because it reminds me of a mid-2000s era Kanye or Jay-Z. Think Touch the Sky or Rock Boys, something like that. It's just a little bit reminiscent of and almost like it's trying to be inspirational. And Jae Skeese, you can still hear his skill here, but the beat does him no favors for sure. However, you can see the different levels of talent. And to me, Conway's verse actually works against showcasing Jae Skeese because you forget about the beat as soon as Conway comes on with his bars, which is what a good MC should do. They can be on a bad beat and still make you enjoy the song, which is what's happening here. Scatterbrain. Conway hops on a track with Jid for the second time, and Jid, one of the best flows of modern MCs. A lot of dudes would be scared to jump on a track with him, but Conway doesn't mind. He's got these diverse styles, and he displays that again on his verse on this track. That being said, Jid continues his streak of incredible verses, and he makes another case for the Forever Story being one of the most anticipated albums of this year. But Luda Ludacris may have stole the show, given that there's such rare appearances from him these days. He proves he hasn't lost it. He says, "Cocaine is a hell of a drug. Like Rick James, have a Coke and a smile. Fuck your couch and your whole existence. You're leaving your family and the kids defenseless." Little Chappelle Show references running through those bars. Had to Hustle, only the second song that isn't really working for me. It does have a nice bass line and a catchy chorus, but really not a song with a lot of replay value to me. It almost feels like an afterthought or something that wasn't quite finished, given the quality of the rest of the album. SE Gang, and again, if there was any doubt that the Griselda boys were still tight and we're still gonna make music together, all three of them are on this track on a Derringer beat, no less. And the Derringer beat almost sounds more like the introspective style of Harry Fraud that we most recently heard on The Plugs I Met 2, making Benny's verse sound very natural over this. And he does continue with the reflective subject matter that he displayed on that album, making a case to try to take back his crown as the best MC in Griselda. But Conway, with this project, I think still has that crown from Benny. And Westside Gunn makes an appearance on this too. Quantity and quality of Griselda remains unprecedented. Conway, in particular, is on one of the best runs that we've seen in hip-hop ever. Of course, times are different now. We are in the streaming age. If some of our classic MCs came out in the streaming era, there might be no comparison. They would be on crazy album drops as well. But it is what it is. Conway is a product of his time and perfect for it. I do like this one a little bit more than his last project with Big Ghost Ltd. This one sounds a little more complete. It's another win for Conway La Maquina. I'm gonna give this an 8 out of a 12 pack. Thank you for watching my review of Conway the Machine's La Maquina. If you like this, go ahead and hit like now, hit me up in the comments, and subscribe to my channel. If you didn't like it, also let me know why in the comments. I drop hip-hop and hops related content consistently. So until I see you next time, keep bugging.